Hey guys, what's up? What's going on? Hope you all are having a fantastic weekend, and today I'm doing my 2020 Senate predictions. In this video, I will analyze each and every race to the best of my ability. I try to leave my bias out as much as possible, and only use data, and I'll rely on many different measures as the video progresses. So now, without further ado, let's get right into it. Also, I need to change. I thought I was okay. Well, now you can see what I do in my free time. Alright, so we're going to get started, and essentially, we're going to. Don't have a watermark yet. That's. I wish I had a watermark. It's a really petty thing, It's like, oh, they're not that big of a deal. I don't know why, but I really want one. Like LTE, Red Eagle, politics gaming, election predictions, official, Red Donkey, political analysis, election predictions. They all have one, but one can dream. Hopefully, we'll get there one day. But so we're going to get started by filling out our safe states. Now, Oregon is a safe state. The Republicans are not investing anything into this race. It's not close. New Mexico is an open seat, but it is still very much a safe one. The polling aggregate does actually have it as a likely uh, Democratic seat, but the Republicans, I think they nominated the wrong candidate. They should have gone for Elisa Martinez. She had appealed to the Latino vote there, and was a well-known name. She was I think she was the chair of the New Mexico Alliance for Life Foundation, but she did not get the nomination. It went to Mark Ronchetti, who is a popular. Did I just say popular? I don't know why I said popular. He's never ran in a statewide election before, so we don't know. But he is a meteorologist. So, yeah. Illinois is a safe state. Virginia is safe. Delaware, New Jersey, Rhode Island, Massachusetts are all safe. There was a Senate primary going on there back in September between Ed Markey and Joe Kennedy, but that did not result in anything. Typical Republican safe states, Idaho, Wyoming, South Dakota, Nebraska, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Tennessee, and the state of West Virginia, where there's been a lot of talk about Paula Jean Swearengin. She's a progressive in West Virginia. Let's see what she can do. I don't think that progressives do well in this area. The only Democrats that can win here are conservative Democrats. Your Jim Justices of the world, your John Testers, your Andy Bashirs, your Al Gores, Bill Clintons, Claire McCaskills, Joe Manchins. So those are really the only people that can win in these areas. So we have our safe states for each party. Now we're going to get into the actual contested race. So we essentially have 18 races that are competitive, some more than others. In order to start with the less competitive ones, going from left to right, Arizona. Now the polling aggregate, I usually like to show this on my screen, but I'm not going to do that. According to RCP, the polling aggregate currently has Mark Kelly ahead by 6%. Again, there was a poll yesterday that put Misali up by 3, but it's an outlier. Every other poll, even Rasmussen and Trafalgar, which are both Republican polls, have put Kelly ahead. He's going to win by around 6%. And in fact, the polls in Arizona, both in 2016 and 2018, underestimated Democratic support. So, and if the polls are putting Kelly up by nearly 6%, he's probably going to win by something like that. So Kelly's going to win by 6%. He's popular. He's outdoing Kirsten Sinema. Kirsten Sinema, who is now a senator in Arizona as a Democrat, she was supposed to lose this race according to the polls by 1%. She ended up winning it by 2.5%. Now, Colorado is another likely state. And, this is weird because I would put it as safe or, safe because of the fact that John Hickenlooper is running as the Democrat, former popular governor, But Cory Gardner is the incumbent, and he's a Republican. There are a lot of people who really like Cory Gardner. Cory Gardner, he is a very likable figure in the Republican Party, but he's kind of like the Doug Jones of that party. They really like him. They'd love to see him in the Senate, but unfortunately, for him, it does not look like he's going to be serving in the Senate. So, Colorado is not going to change. I've said it's going to be a likely Democratic seat for a while, and I do think, unfortunately for him, I do think that Cory Gardner is going to get annihilated by John Hickenlooper. So now moving on to our next likely state, that's the state of Minnesota. Minnesota, I don't really think is that competitive. Yeah, there was one poll, I think, that put Jason Lewis within striking distance. He was behind by, I think, 1 or 2%. One poll, but that's not really. I don't really seem, to be honest. I don't really think that Lewis has a chance. The Republicans aren't like, if they were putting money in this race, I'd be like, okay, maybe they see something from their internal polling, but we haven't, like we really haven't seen that happening. Jason Lewis is not out fundraising Tina Smith. This race is not getting a ton of attention from the media, and the Democrats should be happy about this. This is their seat, and they don't want it to be given attention and give the Republicans a reason to fundraise or try to win this race. So right now, Smith is ahead in the aggregate by 6%, but that's real clear politics. I think they're giving way too much. Literally, they give Jason Lewis literally like a 2 to 3% bounce from this one poll that put him only behind by 1. He's going to lose by, I think, in between 5 and 7%. And we have one more likely state on our hands, for the Democrats at least. That's New Hampshire. And this state, I'm going to maintain my characterization as likely. I do think that Shaheen is essentially a shoo-in for re-election. She's going to win here easily. She's definitely going to outperform Joe Biden, but I don't think that she'll be able to win by more than 12%. That's a bit of a stretch to me. So this race is not competitive. It's just, going to be less than 12%. Now, we do have a few likely Republican states, starting with the state of Alaska. Dr. Al Gross, there's been a lot of talk about people sleeping on him, but, when people are sleeping on him, I don't know. Or when you're talking about people sleeping on him, that doesn't really make it that you're sleeping on him, but whatever. But essentially, there's not been a ton of polling on Alaska on the Senate race there. But what I can tell you is that it looks like Sullivan is ahead. But as we all know, it's hard to poll Alaska. But what they're saying essentially is that Alaska, the Senate race, the latest poll came out on October 22nd. That sampled 1,000 voters, put Sullivan up by 3. There was a poll actually that sampled 600 likely voters from Patinkin Research Strategies that actually put Al Gross, the Democrat, ahead by 1%. There was another poll from Harstead that put Gross ahead by 1. So we've seen these polls that are, putting Gross ahead, but again, I don't really expect him to be able to flip, but I do think he'll come within, he'll make it closer than you would expect. So I think he's going to lose the state by around 6, 7, maybe 8%. Okay, now moving on to the state of Texas. This race is not competitive. Oh my gosh. This race is not competitive at all. I'll be completely honest. I don't think MJ Heger has a chance here. She's not out fundraising. She's out fundraising John Cornyn, but not as much as Beto worked out fundraise Ted Cruz by. And, overall, Ted Cruz was just much more unpopular than John Cornyn is. Cornyn is the incumbent Republican senator. And MJ Heger is no Beto O'Rourke. So I don't think this race will be particularly close. I do think that John Cornyn will outperform Donald Trump by maybe even 5%. He's going to win it by something like 9, 10%, and I would not be surprised if this is safe. And even in a best-case scenario, I don't see Heger really winning it. At best, she loses it by 4%, 3%. But she's not – I don't think she's a very strong candidate. It's not a knock on her as a person. I actually think she's a great person, but I just don't think that she's a strong enough candidate to make the race that competitive. Now, Kansas, speaking of strong candidates, Barbara Bollier is the best Democrat recruit you can find. Literally, poll after poll has had her tied or even beating her Republican opponent, Roger Marshall. I can't believe I forgot his name because this is such an interesting race. But the spread or on 538 again, RCP they do better at averaging stuff out, but like they just don't seem to report all the polls. But anyways, going back to Kansas, the Senate poll, the most recent one came out on the 22nd, put Marshall up by 4 from an A+ poll. So I think that's a pretty good indicator of how the race is going. It's close, but Marshall does have the edge, which is what I'm reflecting. But it's been kind of all over the place. We had to put Marshall up by 4. Another one had it as even, Marshall up by 12. Then another one from V Creek, sampling 3,000 likely voters, put Barbara Bollier up by 4. And then we see polls that have put Marshall up by 7, Bollier up by 2, Marshall up by 4, even, Marshall up by 2, Marshall up by 1, Marshall up by 10, Bollier up by 1, Bollier up by 1. So this race is all over the place in the polls, but I'm going to stick with the fact that it is Kansas. Barbara Bollier, she has appealed to a lot of moderate Republicans because she used to be a moderate Republican, then switched to the Democratic Party in 2018. She has appealed to these voters, and certainly Roger Marshall had to spend all his money trying to beat Chris Kobach in that primary, so Bollier is out fundraising him. She has the big cash advantage. So that is good news for her. But unfortunately for her, she's running in Kansas on the same ballot as Donald Trump, and I think Donald Trump is certainly going to help Marshall. It'll certainly be very close for Kansas, but I think Marshall's going to win by something like 5-6%. Now, I will say that if Chris Kobach was the nominee, Bollier would probably be winning this race. Now, going over to the state of Mississippi, in Alabama, we're just going to put those two together as likely, higher and likely seats for the Republican Party. Doug Jones is the incumbent in Alabama. He beat a child molester by 2% in 2017, I believe, 2017 special election. He's not going to win again. He has a non-controversial opponent. Mississippi is another one where I think that the Democrats don't really have a chance here. I think everyone agrees that this state is not competitive at the presidential level, maybe a little competitive at the Senate level, but Mike Espy, strong candidate and all, he has good credentials, but unfortunately for him, it does not look like he's going to win this race. African-American turnout can be high, but it still won't be enough to carry him over the finish line. So he's going to be losing this race by, I'm going to guess, in between 10 and 12%. And then Doug Jones is going to lose by a similar margin. Kentucky, another one that's going to be likely. Mitch McConnell may be unpopular, but he's going to win re-election because a lot of these voters are going to vote for Donald Trump, and they're going to hold their nose, and they're going to vote for Mitch McConnell. So now we're going to go. So essentially, these are essentially are contested states. All these likely states, maybe they're competitive, but Montana, Iowa, Michigan, Georgia, both elections, South Carolina, North Carolina, Maine. These are very, very competitive elections. So we're going to start with the Democratic lean seats. Michigan. So this is a rating change. I had this from likely as a likely race beginning in June, and it stayed that way until this prediction. So I'm going to talk about this race for a second. Now, in Michigan, we have seen some hype regarding John James. He's really the only, other than Alabama, Michigan has been the only seat identified that the Republicans can flip. Their third best shot would have to be, probably New Hampshire, but that's essentially become solidified for the Democrats. And then they're looking at trying to flip New Mexico, but that's a safe Democratic seat. And then they were trying to flip Virginia back in 2019. That's a safe Democratic seat. So all of these seats have been taken out of play for the Republican Party. So they're left with Alabama, which they're going to flip, and Michigan, which I don't think that they'll be able to flip. Now, the polls that we've seen, the polling aggregate puts Peters up by 5.2%. He actually had a very solid lead, back in June. He was ahead by nearly 10% in the polls, but it's since narrowed up to around 5%. So again, that was expected. But John James is doing a good job. He's starting to spend a lot of his money on the ad blitz in Michigan, and he has to rely on high rural turnout. From these areas in the Upper Peninsula and Northern Michigan. Now, Gary Peters is relying on higher turnout from Detroit in this area, Ann Arbor, those college towns, and I think he'll be able to do it. Michigan is a pretty blue state. Peters, not pretty blue, I think it's a leaning blue state, but Peters is pretty popular. He shouldn't really have a problem with any of the issues that voters are. He's a former veteran. He is a pretty moderate Democrat, and I don't think he'll have an issue with any of the issues. It'll just come down, no pun intended, it'll just come down to, can John James rally fire up his base enough? And if Donald Trump wins Michigan, which is entirely possible, I think John James is also going to win. But I think that we're not going to see a scenario where Biden wins Michigan, but James wins. So it'll be pretty down ballot. But anyways, I think that Gary Peters is going to win by something like 3 to 4% in the latest poll in the state of Michigan. Again, it's important because the polls in Michigan do generally underestimate GOP support by 2-3%. But the latest poll put Peters up by 6, Peters up by 8, Peters up by 4. They did 3 different polls. But the best polls, the A+ rated polls, have actually had the race a little bit closer. The most recent one from October 12th put Peters up by 1. But before that, from September, they were putting Peters up by 5, by 6. And then back in June, Peters was up by 10. So this race is narrowing. This is no longer a likely Democratic seat. But at this point in time, I do think that Peters should be favored to win. Now, moving on to our other lean Democratic seats, we have 2 more, starting with the state of North Carolina. So North Carolina, I really think is interesting because of the Cal Cunningham inappropriate text scandal. Again, that was not a sexting scandal. For people who are calling it that, it was not sexting. He just was being romantic. And the reason it's a big deal, or to some people it's a big deal, is because it wasn't his wife. So he was essentially committing adultery. But anyways, that didn't really seem to. I thought it was going to kill him, but from the polling data that we've seen, it has not really done anything to hurt him. He's currently ahead by 1.7%. In fact, this might have actually, for some reason, helped him. I mean, because at the beginning of October, he was ahead by, let me see, he was ahead by 6%. Or actually, no, it didn't help him, but he actually had a brief boost where he went up to 7%. But since then, Tillis is actually gaining substantially as of late. Cunningham was ahead by 4 last week and is now ahead by only 1.7. So the race is certainly narrowing up. And I think that's expected, but I think that this is not going to kill him. The polls in North Carolina have been pretty accurate in the past. Cunningham running a good campaign. He's out fundraising Tillis, and if he'll be able to just hold on, to his leads that he has, he should be able to win this race by around 2%, maybe 3%. Our last, by the way, Cunningham has a lot of appeal to Trump voters because it's going to be split ticket voting happening in North Carolina. We're going to have, first of all, the Democratic governor, Roy Cooper, is expected to win by something like 10%. So that's probably going to help the Democrats down ballot. And Dan Forrest, who is his Republican opponent, is not very well. Like, that might hurt down ballot Republicans like Tillis and Trump. So I think that Cal Cunningham is going to hold the phone. I did not characterize South Carolina as a likely Republican seat. Well, that's unfortunate. I don't know why I forgot that, but I'll just go through this quickly. South Carolina, Jamie Harrison may have the hype. He's out fundraising Lindsey Graham, but at the end of the day, this is South Carolina. Donald Trump is on the ballot. We are not, maybe in the future, but right now, it does not look like Lindsey Graham is going to lose this race. Now, the latest polls have been very close, and I think the race will be close. But I just see Graham winning by something like 5-6%. Now, I want to give you guys the accurate update. The latest poll, surprisingly, actually put Harrison up by 2, and then another one put Harrison up by 2, then Graham up by 6, then Harrison up by 1, then a tie, then Harrison up by 1. So Harrison is leading in the polls, but I really do not think he's going to win this race. I think he'll lose by 5-6%, although he does have a good chance. 6 months ago, it was impossible. Now it is very possible, but I'm going to go with my gut and say that Graham wins by 5-6%. So now going back to our lean Democratic seats. By the way, I feel like I was talking too close to my mic for a few minutes there because I was kind of going like this. Well, not like that, more like this. But now I'm going to say it like this because sometimes I like to lean forward, other times I like to lean backwards, whatever. You guys probably don't care. Maine. Susan Collins, her political career is over. Her, I would have retired and cut my losses, but that's just me. The poll aggregate from Maine, we've seen a lot of data there, because this got a lot of hype. The average was getting up by 4. She has been consistently in the lead, and that does not look subject to change. I don't think Collins has a chance. She might have had a chance if it weren't for what was I going to say? If it weren't for ranked choice voting, she would have had a chance because Lisa Savage is an independent, left-leaning challenger that would have actually taken away votes from Gideon. Or she would have taken away votes from Gideon, but since ranked choice voting has come into play, it looks like that won't hurt Collins, or that won't help Collins. So I think she won't have enough Trumpers. I think there are going to be a lot of Trumpers in Maine who are going to vote for Trump, but probably leave the Senate race blank, just because there's been this sentiment that Collins is a rhino. Again, I don't think that you should be calling people rhinos or dinos, but whatever. That's not for me to judge. But Collins certainly has voted with the Democrats in the past, and her base won't really be fired up to vote for her. And on the other side, the Democrats are really mad because she won in a landslide because she got a bipartisan support in 2014. That she essentially lost that talking point when she voted for Brett Kavanaugh. So she's just running as a Republican in Maine, getting out fundraised, losing momentum. And at this point in time, it looks like she's probably going to lose. So, yeah. And going over to our leading Republican states, we've got 2 seats, rather, because, yeah, whatever. Georgia, normal. How long have I... Okay, it's already been 20 minutes. I could talk forever about this, but we're going to try to wrap this up. Georgia. This state is very, very competitive both at the presidential level and Senate level. But John Ossoff trying to unseat a popular incumbent like David Perdue, I just don't see it happening. I think voter suppression will come into play. There have been some polls that have put Ossoff ahead or had the race. It is close. I agree. It is close. But looking at the polling data, the average puts Perdue ahead by 0.6. Ossoff has certainly narrowed the polls. He was supposed to lose by 5%, like even back in June. And since then, it has now become anyone's race. But if I'm being completely honest, I think John Ossoff is still going to lose, no matter what the polls say. The polls could have him up. I still would probably have him losing. Excuse me. Now going over to the Georgia special election. It's really weird because the Democrats actually would probably be okay. I just clicked on the wrong ad because I'm on another tab. I'm not screen recording. And I'm looking at the polls, the RCP polls in Georgia, Georgia special election, and so what I've seen is that basically this ad came up. Whatever. Now, the Democrats really got the short end of the stick in this election, because if this were not a runoff type election, I would really probably be putting this as a pure toss-up, or maybe just tilt Republican, because Raphael Warnock, this probably be likely Democratic, because Matt Lieberman and Raphael Warnock are both running as Democrats. Lieberman really has lost all his momentum. He was actually the favorite for the Democrats, like, back in March and April, but since then, stuff has changed. He is probably going to get 5 to 10% of the vote. So, yeah. Now, Raphael Warnock, who received Barack Obama's endorsement, is probably going to be there's actually 100% going to be the Democrats' top finisher. Lieberman, is probably going to get, again, not a ton of votes. Now, for the Republicans, essentially split between Doug Collins and kellya Loafler. In terms of support, kellya Loafler. Now, if it ends up being a runoff between kellya Loafler and what is just Raphael Warnock, then I'm gonna say that I would think Raphael Warnock would have a good chance, because so much stuff to unpack with this race, because Loafler and Collins are going to be vote splitting, so it'll probably be something like 25-25, maybe 27-23 in favor of Loafler. And then for the Democrats, it'll be something like, it'll be like, if they're getting 48% of the vote, it'll be like 42% for 44% for Warnock, 4% for Lieberman. So Warnock is definitely going to get the majority of the votes. But he has to get 50% to avoid a runoff. Now, that's not going to happen unless something crazy happens. So he'll probably get 44, 43% of the vote, and then we're going to have a runoff, and it'll be between the top Republican finisher, or the top two finishers, actually. So it could be two Republicans, could be a Democrat versus a Republican, but it'll probably be just between Raphael Warnock and the top Republican finisher. And if I had to bet, I'd say it's going to be Doug Collins. Kellya Loafler. So kellya Loafler and Raphael Warnock are going to go to a runoff, and yeah. And then Warnock might have a chance because Loafler, she has an insider trading scandal, but runoffs happen in January, and the Democrats generally do not turn out for runoffs. Like, Democratic turnout has been horrible in runoffs, so I think that's why the Democrats are essentially screwed here. So I just spent 3 minutes talking about that. That's way longer than I want to do. But in short, the Democrats should not be happy with the way this election is working out for them, but either way, it's still competitive. So now we're going to leave our two toss-up states. I'm actually going to give them both to the Democrats. This may come as a surprise to some, because I'd like to give one to the GOP, one to the Democrats. It usually was Montana going blue and Iowa going red, but I changed in my last prediction because the polls were putting Daines up. But now the polls are trending towards Bullock. I've seen a few that have put him up by 2-3 points. So I'm gonna have to check the polls really quickly to make sure I am not misspeaking, or not mistaken rather. Because I'm not misspeaking, I just might be ill-informed, which I try to avoid. Where's Montana? There we go. So the latest poll put Daines up, but again, it's a lot of these. I trust this poll that put Daines up by 3 because it's New York Times. But some of these polls, RMG Research or Spry Strategies, that have put Daines up by 1, I think those are just outliers. They're just not credible. There was one poll that put Daines up by, I think, 9%. Who was that? That was who was that? I think that was Emerson, which is actually a decent poll, but I think that's your average outlier. You always see one of those. So I think that Bullock's going to win. My friends in Montana do tell me that he's, going to win here. He's a popular governor. He has bipartisan support. Daines has not been too popular. He's not unpopular. He's just not popular enough to rally his base. So I do think that Bullock is going to win this race by less than 1%, by the skin of his teeth. He's going to win this race. Now going over to the state of Iowa, there have been a lot of good polls for Teresa Greenfield. I'm not going to lie. I was originally a doubter of hers, because I was saying, the polls in Iowa underestimate Republican support or Greenfield's too establishment to win. She's proved me wrong. She has been able to cater her campaign to the farmers in Iowa, and let's see the recent polls. I'll read them off to you. Greenfield by 3, Ernst by 1, Ernst by 6, Ernst by 4, Ernst by 1, Greenfield by 6, Greenfield by 2, tie, Greenfield by 5, Greenfield by 4, Greenfield by 4, Greenfield by 3, Greenfield by 5. There was one poll. It was from a Democratic internal poll, sampling around 800 voters. Put Greenfield up by 12. So I think Greenfield has the polling edge. It's been pretty big, and I think she's going to win this race. She'll win it by 1%. Skin of her teeth. She's going to beat Joni Ernst. Ernst has not been that popular. She's been losing support. So I do think that the Democrats should be very happy about where they are in this race. And assuming nothing major happens in the last 10 days, how far away from the election we have? It's the 25th today, so we're 8 days away from the election, guys. Holy cow! So, all right, guys, thanks for watching this video. Please be sure to like and subscribe. Honestly, liking and subscribing, subscribing helps me out a lot because, if you subscribe, let me just say this. I get closer to my next goal, which is 3,000 before the election. Probably not going to happen, but one can dream. And we're going to have a Q&A for every 1,000 subscribers. I just dropped my 2,000 subscriber Q&A. Hopefully we can get to 3,000 soon. And then also, by the way, liking just shows your appreciation. That you like this video, which is hopefully what happened. You don't have to. By the way, you don't have to agree with my prediction to like the video. You can say, okay, well, UAP, I think Montana's going to go red, and you can still like the video because the effort I put in, or you can disagree and dislike, whatever. Again, I'd actually rather you dislike than do nothing because I treat that as a poll, but I can ramble on forever and ever, but thanks for watching, guys. All the links in the description, Discord, Twitter, social media, and see you all in the next one.